Guys, is the NFL NIL is the NIL affecting football decisions? Most notably, because it's Tennessee, you would say that there might be a push to get Nico to play because he's supposedly getting $8 or $9 million, a number that I think has been a little bit inflated. But there are other players out there. I think Dante Thornton would be a more apt example. I know he got some cash to come to Tennessee in the transfer portal. I think he's been out there quite a bit, whereas I think Squirrel White gives you a greater threat from that slot position. John, do you think NIL, not just to Tennessee, but across the board in college football, NIL investments are affecting college football decisions?
Well, if they are, the coaches are in big trouble. I mean, you've got to use you've got to use the NFL model here for if you're paying guys to play. You can't let that influence your decision. Otherwise, Bill Belichick would never taken Drew Bledsoe out of the starting position for Tom Brady. Uh, he was one of the highest paid players in the NFL. Tom Brady was working for not nearly as much money. So yeah, I just don't think I I can see where there could be some pressure to bear on a coach occasionally, depending on the situation, maybe from families of players. But I just can't. I just don't see how that would be possible. You've got to play your best guys. It's too hard to win in this sport unless you're playing your best guys, and you're making a big mistake if you say, "Oh well, he's making more money. Let's get him out there and let's appease our boosters and our collective." That won't work.
Well, I'll differ with you on one thing, John. With NIL money, if I'm paying a player and his family, they don't even get my cell phone number. I'm not even appeasing kids anymore, and coaches used to have to do that. Caleb, what say you?
So I do think this is a case by case basis. I don't want to put a blanket uh, thing over it. And to go the NFL model, I'm going to quote, funny enough, believe it or not, a former president before he was ever president. He was on Quite Frankly. Donald Trump was on Quite Frankly with Stephen A. Smith one time and had a saying, which is, if I give you $1,000 loan and you can't pay it back, you've got a problem. But if I give you a $200 million loan and you can't pay it back, we both have a problem. And so with NIL, I think that's where it's going, which is if you pay a player like $10,000 and he doesn't perform or he's a bust, that's on that player. He takes $10,000, but he's not going to play. If you pay a player $8 million and he's a bust, you got kind of an issue with some boosters, and I think that is a bigger issue.
That's a great point. I want to further that with there are coaching decisions that are made, and I think Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton in 2021 would be one that you have to make that in your mind as a coach are close to 50-50. John, so if it's 55-45, I think guy A over guy B should play, but guy B is supported by Pilot, one of the biggest sponsors. I might lean towards guy B if it's close. And these decisions are oftentimes they look like easy decisions afterwards, but a lot of times they're pretty close in camp and in practice.
Well, you also have to consider, as Caleb said, case by case. You also have to consider the position the coach is in. If he's solidly entrenched as a head coach, uh, he doesn't have to bend to the will of boosters in the least bit. If he's Billy Napier at Florida, he might might have a little bit better listening when it comes to boosters. I think so. I think it does depend on how secure the coach is, and there aren't a lot of secure coaches, maybe, but there are also a lot of high paid ones in the SEC. And Josh Heupel is one of those guys. I don't think people are going to question Josh Heupel much right now.
Now, you talk about where you are in your security in your decision making concerning NIL. On the flip side, Smoky Mountain Red says NIL has clearly balanced out recruiting from Saban taking all the talent. Do you think it's that simple, John?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the whole NIL thing just raises so many questions, and you combine it with the transfer portal. It's just a completely different world, and I think we're headed for chaos, really. It's an overused word perhaps, but this December, I think we're going to see more movement, unlike anything we've ever seen so far. And the impact could be enormous.
How do you see that impact, Caleb, in the future years? I think you're going to see talent spread evenly like peanut butter.
So it's hard to predict because here's what's happening in college football right now. There were 3 sticks of dynamite under like the land of college football. One was NIL, one was the transfer portal, the other, or 4 actually. The other was conference realignment, and the other was changing, altering the postseason. All 4 of those sticks were lit at the exact same time, which is crazy to think about if you really break it down. And they all are connected to each other because NIL is going to affect the transfer portal. It's also going to affect whether or not somebody decides to play in the postseason. And then you have conference realignment determining, is there going to be a hierarchy in college football that we're not aware of yet? And so it's absolutely crazy to think about the fact that, look, I'm going to be honest. I'm making some predictions. I don't know how this all ends up. And I don't think anybody does, because I think what you've seen is, again, you lit 4 sticks of dynamite at the exact same time. And nobody knows exactly what's going to be the result of that when it explodes the entire landscape.
John, I do think it would have been better to adjust to for programs, but they're all getting millions of dollars, so I don't really care. But it would have been better for them if it had been one step at a time. It just kind of got all thrown on college universities in like roughly 18 months.
Yeah, it's a proverbial runaway train. Obviously, the NCAA wasn't ready for this. It wasn't very farsighted. I don't think it was very good in projecting what could happen. But I mean, what do we expect from the NCAA? So, yeah, I just think though, it's just going to keep building. I still think we just don't know where this is headed, and we don't know how extreme it's going to be.